Okay, so again, my name is Tammy Burns, and I am a family support specialist at PTSY. I also want to let you know that I know times are very unique right now and very unusual for many of us. I do hope that you and your family are doing well. I know that many of us are experiencing quite a bit of stress and anxiety about what's happening in the world. And for some of us with kids with disabilities, this time frame also brings the stress of having our children at home every day, all day, and how will that look for our family, and how do I continue to provide educational support to my child through this time frame. So um, we are going to get started, and I'm going to introduce to you guys our wonderful speaker for the evening. We are excited to be able to share her experiences with you. Tonight, our presenter is Kuhl, and Kathy is a speaker and an author and a coach for parents who homeschool their children with learning disabilities, learning differences. And she is going to share some things with us tonight that I do know that you're going to find very helpful. So, Kathy, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I'm going to take myself off the screen for everybody.
Thank you, Tammy, and welcome everybody. I want to begin by thanking PTSY because back before I homeschooled my son, which we started in 1997, PTSY really helped our family navigate the world of EMTs and IEPs and got a lot of helpful information through them, so I'm grateful. I don't know about you, but I did not want to homeschool my child. I had a child with pretty severe dyslexia and attention problems, and getting him out the door and off to school was enough of a struggle, especially if it involved the homework going along as well, which didn't always make it. We ended up homeschooling him starting in 4th grade because it seemed like the best option for us. He was falling through the cracks, even though it was a wonderful school and I loved the faculty and staff there. And to our surprise, we homeschooled him clear through 12th grade. You all are coming from a variety of different situations. Let's think briefly about the differences in our group this evening and those listening later. Question of whether you've got good internet, your internet speed, how many computers are there in the house, enough for each child when they need it. Educational supplies, you may be ordering stuff right and left to fill things in. Your space in your home, how is that working for education? Is there a place for therapy, for movement and exercise? Is the school providing curriculum, or are you having to wing it? Some school districts, not sure about every district in Virginia, but I understand in some parts of the country, some schools are not providing curriculum because they feel not able to provide free access, public education for everybody, so they've opted not to provide it. How much teacher support are you getting? Some of you are getting lots of emails and messages from teachers. Others, those teachers may be swamped and not able to communicate with you as quickly as they would like. Then there's the matter of what we called student-teacher ratio when I was teaching public school. How many other kids have you got in the house in addition to the one with the special needs that brought you to listen to this workshop? Are you and your spouse both working from home? And then also, where are you in terms of your morale? And most importantly, is everybody in your house healthy? How are things going? One thing most of you do have in common is that you're new at this. So think of yourself as first-year teachers. The first year teaching, my first principal when I taught middle school said it takes a couple years to really know if you like teaching. So if you're having a rough time right now, that doesn't mean you're not a good teacher. It means you're adjusting. Sarah McKenzie of Read Aloud Revival was quoted in the Washington Post Friday as saying that being a new homeschooler in this situation is like becoming a parent with a newborn. You've got so much to adjust to. You may be wondering if you can do it, how it's going to work. Your kids are also adjusting. They're missing school, they're missing friends. There's a huge schedule change for them. They may be missing teachers and aides, all kinds of things, and just any change is unsettling for them. So I want to encourage you to be patient with yourself and stop and think about your goals. For some of us, the goal is just to survive. I know a few of you may be feeling like you're up to your eyeballs, particularly those who are trying to juggle work and teaching. That's rough. Um, I understand and I get surviving, and we can feel that way for many reasons. Um, some of you may be feeling like this is a test drive for homeschooling. I've heard from other families that people were thinking they were going to do this one of these days, they might try it, and now they thought, okay, well, this is my opportunity. Let's see what it's like. Bear in mind that this is nothing like ordinary homeschooling. The homeschoolers are going through the same adjustments all of us are. Their homeschooling is almost a misnomer. Families get out and do a lot together. So it's a struggle. There, hang on, let me fix one thing here. There we go. And some of you, maybe you've homeschooled a while or you coming back to homeschooling, you may be looking to see how you can help your kids thrive, how you can be here tonight because you want to try and improve how things are going. For those families, I've got a couple of quick resources. It's really important as you plan to think of not just the strengths of the strengths and interests of your child, not just the weaknesses. Many of us who homeschool a child with special needs come to it because of our children's challenges. But any good education, any good life is built on a person's strengths and passions. So we want to build on what our kids are good at, what they love. I have two resources to help you with that. If you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, that's at learndifferently.com. I've got a landing page for you. It'll be up. Yeah, it is up now. It's learndifferently.com/Peatc, Peatc, and that'll give you a place to sign up. I'm also going to post some resources that I've quoted this evening on that page in the next day. That goal setting guide is one option. Also on the website, I gave a whole half-hour talk on just planning that you can find on the talks page under past talks. So whatever goals you're pursuing, the next issue then is to get organized. We're going to look at several aspects of getting organized. First, organizing your time. How do you schedule a homeschool? If you've Googled this, as many of you probably have, as you'll be astonished, you may have been astonished at how many different ways people are scheduling their homeschools and how many Instagram worthy images are up there. Pinterest has a slew of them as well. I want to encourage you, don't try to be Instagram worthy. Don't worry about what things look like on Facebook or have something good to post. Don't bother with elegant calligraphy unless it helps you relax. But you want a routine, a schedule that's helpful and practical for you because routines are beneficial. We all know this from working with kids. I remember my mother saying at one point that how much her life improved when she got me and my little brother to bed at a regular time. It's also good for our mental health to have some kind of a schedule and a routine. So I'd encourage you each morning with your children to just run through the plan of the day. With teens, you might want to do this the night before. As you're thinking about this plan of the day, it's nothing as formal as a morning meeting like you might have at work or your kids might have at school, but a quick run through. If you've got online school activities that are at a particular time of day, you're going to want to have those in your schedule first, and also any work meetings you might have, conferences you're doing, teleconferencing. So, and then you want to work the rest of your day around that. It's really important that your kids have the hardest work at the time when they're at their best. For most kids, that's mid-morning through late morning until they start getting hungry and distracted. So it varies with the person though. Some of our teens are night owls and will hit their peak a little later in the day. But I always like to give the toughest work and tackle the toughest work when people are at their freshest. When we homeschooled, that meant that it was easier for us to focus on math and language arts in the morning. And we did, on the afternoons, we worked on a block schedule. So my son did history one afternoon with his grandfather. which is something you could do online. Science experiments were another afternoon, and so on. We mixed it up there. As you're planning your schedule, you also want to think about how you're going to make it available to your kids. You could write it on a whiteboard, as we did. You could write it on a chalkboard. Some of us have walls painted with chalkboard paint, so that's easy. Some families are using Trello or just type something up on a grid on the computer and printing it. But the schedule needs to be accessible and visible for everybody. What about our kids' special needs? How does that it affect the schedule? Well, first, we're going to look for ways to break up lessons. If your child's always getting frustrated halfway through the 20-minute math lesson, then break it in two. Let's have two 10-minute math lessons. Or if it's an online class, let the work be done in chunks. Give your children chances to move and wiggle between those lessons, or do them in different positions. We'll talk about that in just a minute. When I taught math in my home, it was 70 minutes of math. I've trained as a math teacher, but we probably did 7 or 8 activities during that time, and they were in different locations of the house that enabled my son to get some movement and around, get him from one place to another. We also want to think about managing the materials of your homeschool, because it's different from when they were just doing homework. This is the center of learning in your home right now. So you may want to make a couple changes instead of trying to get everything to land back in the backpack at the end of the day. You might color code materials by subject or by student if you've got more than one kid at home that you're working with. Sue Patrick's workbox system, I've shown a picture on this slide, may help you get organized, particularly with multiple children. So you can download this little ebook of hers, and basically what she does, you can do this part without the book. She uses shoe boxes, one for each subject for each child, and she bought the plastic ones from some organizing store. And in the math box, for instance, there's today's math worksheets and a pencil or 2 pencils and an eraser and any manipulatives they need. So when it's time for the child to do math, they can pull that box out, and when they're done, they put it back and get the next thing out. That way everything's together. She spends a little time the night before stuffing those boxes, pulling out papers. And that is one way that you can organize materials. That's at workboxsystem.com. Other families will have dedicated shelves, may put colored tape on a shelf to show a child where this box goes when you're done. That may be too much work for some of you. I didn't ever put tape on shelves. We did have places for books to go. Location, I mentioned that a minute ago, and that's another part of organizing your homeschool. You want to use different parts of your house for different subjects sometimes. One year, my son did math on a whiteboard under the dining room table. He got that deep pressure on his stomach. That's soothing for some children. If you experiment with older children working alone in their rooms, of course, no TV, take advantage of the accessibility features on your children's devices and computers to limit their access to different features. Look at parental controls and dive into accessibility features. A little more about organization. I've given you a scattershot of ideas right now. I could talk much longer on any of those, but let me just say, try 1 or 2 at a time. Don't say, okay, Kathy said 17 things last night, I'm going to try and do all 17. You wouldn't do that anyway. That's crazy, but try a couple and see what works. Remember to be flexible within your routines. If your child desperately wants to spend a few more minutes on this lesson, then run with it, I'd say. Some of our kids are distracted auditorily. For them, using headphones or using earplugs can help. Some kids actually can work better listening to music. I'm not one of them. If they say they can work better listening to watching something on screen, I would never believe that, but auditorily earplugs and headphones can help. For a child who's visually distracted, you can build a little study carrel. Just take an appliance box or get one of those trifold cardboard stands that displays, like we use for science fair projects or for displays for some sort of show or presentation. And You can turn one of those into a study carrel. It works like visual blinders for your student. It's also helpful to in adapting the program to include short breaks between lessons, if that's or between changes of activity, if that's something the kid will tolerate. Some children that's helpful to. For others, the process of getting back to work after a 2-minute break is so painful that it's better to incorporate movement into the next lesson to get the change that way. Breaks are short. Of course, we do want little breaks for snacks, water, movement. Expect resistance. This is normal. It doesn't mean you're a bad homeschooling parent. Um, it's work, and grown-ups often don't work unless we get paid. So understand that. Be firm but flexible. I want to next talk a little bit about curriculum. Um, oh, I should show you my pictures first here. On the left are 3 boys who are all wearing headphones, whose desks are carefully arranged so nobody can see anybody else. In the middle, our children are getting outside for part of their lesson. That's a family that let me use their picture for presentations. On the right, this boy is reading his history while stretched out on the trampoline. Again, he's getting deep pressure to his core. And his mother, who sent me this picture, said when he needed a break, he slid the books over to the side of the trampoline and bounced. Now, you may not have a trampoline, but a mini trampoline will fit in lots of places. And you can't lay down on it, but the bouncing is good for a lot of activities. Moving on to a curriculum. What you have is going to vary among the audience this evening. Some of you have school-provided online materials, packets you're supposed to download, print, and scan and send back. Some of you may have little or no materials and you're having to wing it. You may want to talk with your teachers, with your school about adapting your curriculum for this situation. For instance, suppose you have an adolescent who's just overwhelmed by everything that's showing up on Google Classroom. He's getting queries from the teacher and he could do the work when in school, but it's just too much. You can operate as his secretary, as his administrative assistant, and keep track of that part for him. He's still doing the work, but you're interfacing with Google Classroom for him or whatever media your child's teacher is using. You might consider, for a student who's overwhelmed by the amount of work, you might consider talking with the teacher about certain changes. You might say that you'd consider they would be an appropriate accommodation for your child with special needs doing distance learning. Teachers are working very hard to adapt to this huge platform change. A good friend of mine teaches computer-assisted design and what we used to call industrial arts or shop, and he's had to make huge changes to keep that going. So talk with your teachers. Some adaptations may be agreeable to adjust the workload to help your child. Bear in mind, this is you know this, but let me just encourage you. Yeah, feels hard because it is hard. It's a hard thing you're doing. But we want to encourage our kids in what's important. Learning is not about filling out forms and checking off boxes. We really want our children to engage with materials. So we may want to encourage them to spend time researching something they've always wanted to learn about. I'm more concerned about that kind of learning, building minds and kids' emotional health and relationships, than whether or not we check off every single box and finish every single line of every single problem. That's my perspective. If you don't have curriculum, if you're one of those families that's having to try and wing it, I have a few suggestions on choosing good curriculum. I've written a blog post about this. I have people ask me what's a good curriculum for my child, and I'll say, that's like asking me what's a good shoe for your child. We need to talk. You can contact me if you do want to talk one-on-one. I'm happy to do that. Got 2 other resources on the slide, and I'll put these on the handout. CathyDuffyReviews.com. Cathy is CathyDuffy reviews.com. This woman has been reviewing homeschool curriculum probably for 30, 40 years and has thousands of things on her website. I think she's unbiased and very helpful. So I'd encourage you to look at that. Another great resource is spedhomeschool.com. That's SPEAD homeschool.com. I should disclosure, I'm on the board of Sped Homeschool. But the podcasts and webinars and Facebook page are chock full of information for people, not just with dealing with kids like mine with the learning disabilities and ADHD issues or kids on the spectrum, but a wide range of physical and other challenges. So they're a great resource, their website and their Facebook page. All of that can help you with choosing and adapting curriculum. Now, some of you are able to continue your child's therapies at home with instruction from your school therapists. I'm talking here about speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, or maybe other therapies you're getting in or outside of school. Talk with your therapists about homework that you can manage. They may have sent out something with half an hour of exercises for you to do every day, but it's been a few weeks. And real life is this: email them and tell them what you're able to do. If you got 7 minutes, okay, what's most important to do for 7 minutes a day? See what would help them. Remember also that since you're in a different setting, you may want to talk with a therapist about different things you can do because you are at home. You're no longer trying to help your child get better at a classroom situation with 25 other students. It's a different setting. You may even want to hire a private consultant for a one-off session to get advice. I'll be interviewing a pediatric occupational therapist and posting that interview at learndifferently.com in the next week or so. A little bit more about Sped Homeschool. I'll just show you their logo. SPEDhomeschool.com is a nonprofit. It's a helpful resource. I think it's real important that I address the elephant in the room, or in this case, we've got two elephants in our room as we homeschool kids during an age of coronavirus. There's two things that all of us and our kids are dealing with: grief and fear. It's a time of grieving because we're missing the old way of life. Our kids are missing school, friends. We're missing our friends from work and the little bit of respite time we had while our kids were away. As the weeks go by, we may be missing people, worried for illness. There's grief, and that leads to fear. The other elephant is fear. It is a scary time. There's our own personal health risks. Some of our kids or our family members are in high-risk groups. I'm in a high-risk group. I'm over 60. Even lesser things like, how do I get groceries? Where am I going to find toilet paper? All of these changes are unsettling, and we need to acknowledge that everyone around us and our kids and we are dealing with grief and fear. Those are reasonable reactions to a difficult time. So that means that our relationships and our mental health are really important. I want to give you a couple resources quickly to help you with that. The first one, John and Julie Gottman run the Gottman Institute. And one of the things they talk about is nurturing family and marriage relationships. I reviewed on my website a book that John Gottman wrote called Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. He describes in it emotional intelligence. This is something we want our kids to have, where they can recognize emotions they're feeling and name them, deal with them appropriately, express them, of the emotions of themselves and of other people. Now, I know you don't have time to read the whole book, so maybe my review will help you. But let me at least show you two little things you can use. The Gottman Institute website is just Gottman.com, Gottman, Gottman.com. Two things I'd encourage you to take a look at. There's one of the blog posts by Dr. Aaron Leonard is called How to Be a Parent Your Child Wants to Talk to. These are stressful times. One good thing about being home with the kids all day is you can't schedule the important conversations, at least not with your teens. So if you're around, you're more likely to be able to have them. Very good short article to help you. The second one, for those of you that are married, On the slides, you'll see my my slides aren't showing quite well, so I can't read it exactly. I think it's Marriage Matters, Marriage something, Marriage Minute. Perhaps that's it. It's a little newsletter they send out a couple times a week, very short. A psychologist friend of mine recommended it to us. We started subscribing last week, and we've had some fun with that. There's interesting little conversation starters and points, very encouraging, helpful, and short. So 2 resources from the Gottman Institute. Couple other things I want to encourage you in strengthening the relationships and strengthening your mental health. Enjoy games with your family. Knock off sometimes and play an old favorite game. Getting outdoors is so helpful. I'm trying to walk outside every day, and if I don't, I tell you, every day around 4 o'clock, not quite every day, but lots of days when I haven't walked, I'll start to tense up. Are you feeling that at all? If And I find that if I get outside 15, 20 minutes and just look around, breathe a little fresh air, look at a tree or something, that's helpful. Even if you live in a place that there's not a lot of natural beauty around you, keep an eye out for what you see, that gorgeous potted plant that people down the street have, or what you're growing on your windowsill, or what the lady down the hall has blowing from her balcony. Outdoor time is good. Rest is so helpful. And I know it's hard when you're stressed about things. Give yourself some downtime before bed so you can sleep better. I try to read something fairly mindless the last hour I'm awake and try to get off the screens. You know, all these things. Exercise. Respite's really tough. That's an important one. And let me just encourage you to try and be creative about that. I know when the kids are around all day, you're missing those few hours, especially if you haven't homeschooled before and haven't found new rhythms. Can you call a friend? Can you go in the bathroom for a couple of minutes and read? There's lots of ways we can take breaks. I have a friend who's I think 3 of her 5 children have different disabilities. And she said, when I got to the point where the oldest child was old enough to watch the kids for a few minutes, she said, when I could walk to the end of the cul-de-sac and look up at the sky, that was good for her. I've written a book called Staying Sane as You Homeschool. That might be some help to you. And I want to conclude with 3 B's. First, as I began, let me encourage you to be patient with yourself and with your family. This is a hard time for everybody. And in your homeschooling, the first year, mom always learns more than the kids. First year teachers are always learning tons. And the first few months of school, whether you're a veteran teacher who's been in the classroom for years, as I have, or a student, the first few months are tricky. Be patient with your kids. It's an adjustment for them too, and they have this new teacher, and all of a sudden mom has 2 roles. Some of them aren't coping with change well, so expect flare-ups and sidetracks. Secondly, be kind. Look for things that you enjoy doing together. Pull out old favorite movies and talk about the characters. Be kind and encourage your kids to be kind. Reaching out to neighbors. Is there an elderly person you can help out with yard work or with hauling groceries up the stairs? Reach out to people who are living alone. These are scary days, so being kind will help so many people, including yourself. You're giving an example to your kids and you're helping them look outside themselves. And lastly, be thankful. Thankfulness has demonstrated psychological benefits. Keep the kids working on manners at the table, saying thank you for passing something. Thank your grocers. Discuss at the table sometimes, excuse me, that wasn't supposed to beep. As I wrap up, let me encourage you to discuss at the dinner table or over breakfast what you're thankful for. It helps your morale and your focus and your kids' focus. So the 3 B's: be kind, be patient, and be thankful. As this West African woman's office sign said, there's always, always at least one thing for which we can express our gratitude every day. She's working at an NGO in one of the poorest countries on earth that has problems with terrorists and all kinds of things. And she can still be thankful. So can we. I've interviewed 64 families homeschooling kids with all kinds of diagnosed learning disabilities. And um, that book may be some help to you. It's available on Kindle. I'm also happy to talk with individual families. As I said, you can reach me through my website, and my blog may be some help to you. Thanks so much for listening. Tammy?
Yes. Okay, guys. Thanks so much. I do have some questions here, Kathy, that I'm going to read.
Oh,
And I also want to let everybody know, I know as you were talking about, one thing that came to me when you were talking about curriculum is for those of you who are trying to figure out, you want to bring something to the table with your child, you want to do something, and maybe you're not getting the information of what to do or how exactly to do it currently, maybe it's not come down yet from the school. We are at PETSI keeping our Facebook page extremely active. So I would encourage you to get on our Facebook page. We shared, for example, a document this week from that VCU TTAC had put together that includes hundreds and hundreds of websites that offer various types of activities that you can do. And it's done by age range, it's done by topics. So keep up with our Facebook page as well, which will give you guys some things to look at. Here is one question, Kathy, that was asked. It says, is there a recommended amount of time that we should spend homeschooling? Should it be 6 hours like the regular school day?
great question. No, it doesn't need to be 6 hours. Because it's a completely different situation. You've not only got a different ratio, if there's fewer kids in your house than probably were in your kids' classroom, fewer kids with special needs anyway. So you're able to be more efficient. Most of the time people evaluate different educational programs. The standard in research is to measure academic engaged time, how many minutes in each period of time the student is actually writing, reading, demonstrating they're involved. The other times, at least when I've taught in classrooms, when you're teaching the class that maybe a third of the class is zoned out, some of them are desperately hoping you won't call on them. And it's work as a teacher to keep watching eyes and making contact. So, and we homeschool, we can be a lot more efficient. The hours, I'd say, really depend on the child and the age and the amount of material. So I can't generalize more than that. I'm happy to take individual questions if you want to contact me through the website.
Okay. Another question is this, and this has to do with parents who are, at home with their child, and their child usually has one experience at home, and now suddenly home is not just home anymore, it's also school. And so the question is, how can we help our students to be more structured when the expectations are typically so different at home? So they're not, typically doing homeschool, and so
Right.
all of a sudden the family's finding themselves needing to be having to differentiate their day. So how do they help their student be more structured at school time versus now it's not school time?
Okay, thank you. I think posting a schedule can help. Having designated spaces can help. While I like to use the sofa for read aloud and different parts of the house for different subjects, it really does help to have a shelf where the things are. Generally, I required my son to get dressed in the morning. Some homeschoolers don't do that. They just homeschool in their pajamas. We did that on snow days. So getting dressed, setting up a time, sitting at the table with them and starting it out, using a timer, talking about now we're gonna have lunch at this time. We always had recess when we homeschooled, but I had a timer going, and my son became accustomed to that, and your kids will too. Buzzers off, recess is over, which for my son meant the Legos needed to be put down and he needed to come back to the table.
Okay. Someone is asking about adapting work. So this parent is getting work from school right now. And I know, again, I know that's different in every locale right now. Some of you
Mhm.
are getting, as Kathy mentioned, these packets or information from school. Sometimes you're getting online links and those sort of things, and some people are not. But for those people who are getting packets or information from the school system, they're wondering
Mhm.
how do they adapt that work so that their child with a disability can access that material as well. Do you have any hints or information on adapting work?
I could do a couple hours on that, so let me think about
Right, great.
short answers for that. Well, I can tell you as a former math teacher, that was my first job out of college. Um, Not every problem needs to be done. I would look at the problems on some worksheets. There are far too many problems for our special learners. Um, you can often take math problems to focus on math for a second, use a scanner or take a picture with your camera and enlarge the page. Larger print really helps kids. This is not just a thing for dyslexic kids, but larger print can really make it easier for kids to focus. Another thing you can do, take an old file folder and cut a little box, little window out of it and use that so that make the window big enough so just one problem at a time shows. That
Mm,
way, a lot of kids find that reduces the stress. Some kids can see better if you put a colored transparency. If you've got, you can make one if you've got some colored saran wrap at the house and just put a little that inside a cardboard frame, and that can help our kids to focus. Um, Other ways you can adapt in generally shorten assignments. Talk if you're working with your school and they provided some things, I would just feel free to write them back and say, you know, this 8 paragraph essay just is going to be a real stretch for us. How about 3? Or how about we submit an outline this week and you push off the rest till the following week? I think our teachers are working really hard at this and they may be real happy to flex with you, but they may not have the bandwidth to come up with suggestions. Again, this is something where details for individuals are vary, and I'd be real happy to, if people contacted me through my website, we set up a time to talk and I could just take 10 or 15 minutes and give you a few ideas for your particular situation.
fabulous, fabulous. And I'm seeing questions come in, and I'm trying to put them together, guys, because some of them are very similar. There's some questions on here, Kathy, about basically around behaviors, but things. What happens when my child just is choosing not to do the work that I'm trying to present to them? You know, some children have even their disability category. You know, is an oppositional defiance disability, or something that you know, behaviors are to sometimes to escape the work. So have you found ways that are helpful to work with children who are not wanting to participate?
That's the issue, isn't it? But just for
Yeah, it's a
parenting
big
general.
one.
Yeah, your kids don't want to wash their hands, they don't want to come to the table, they don't want to clear the table, and they certainly don't want to do the dishes. So that's part of life. And if I was an expert on all of that, you know, I would have written a book to tell you all, and we could all be happy. Those are hard questions. I
Right.
have not worked with kids with oppositional defiant disorder, so I don't feel competent to address that. I would talk with whichever professionals um, gave the diagnosis, people in the school, and see what suggestions they have for those issues. For general issues of just everyday sort of rebellions, like I don't want to come to the table right now, the same way you handle other discipline issues, there are consequences, there's loss of privileges, loss of screen time is a powerful thing these days. And that's why you want to have those protections and accessibility limits in place when your child is doing their schoolwork or supposed to be doing their schoolwork, because we don't want them spending all day watching YouTube when we thought they were doing school. So I would reduce privileges, reduce screen time. You know, a lot of times kids respond better to rewards than punishments. When I
Yes,
was
yes.
when I was teaching small homeschool group of 11 or 12 um, high school students writing in a composition class. I used to tell my son when he was young, I said, if you don't finish that assignment on time, no computer games this afternoon. He was into one of the Star Wars games online at the time, and he was crazy about it. What worked better when I said was when I said, if you finish the paper by 5 o'clock, you can have 25 minutes of I've forgotten which one it was. Maybe it was Age of Empires, but you can have your game for this long if this work is done by this time. And it was funny because if I'd said, you can't do the game if the work isn't done, that was depressing. But if I said, here's this reward, same thing, I just framed it as a reward instead of a punishment, he was all over it. So
Exactly,
think
exactly. And
creatively like that.
right, you brought up a really good, one strategy that's used oftentimes for a variety of things in the developmental disability world is that if then,
Yeah.
and setting up for kids, whether it's in visuals, and visuals I think are really great for several for some students who
Mm.
are struggling, but setting up that if this happens, then this is the reward. You know, those kind of things work really well. I agree.
And,
There.
and my
Oh, go ahead.
second book, sorry, and my most recent book, Encouraging Your Child, which is on the screen, the middle one, I have a chapter on effective use of rewards and treats. And I discriminate. A reward is something you give for work done. A treat is just something pleasant.
Exactly. And also, I find, I have a 21-year-old son with autism, and so I live in the autism world quite often. And I find that sometimes giving the child some power, if you want to use that word, but the opportunity to make a choice. So
Yes,
you as a parent know that today you'd like them to read something. So you give them an opportunity to make the choice of what that is, or even you give them the opportunity to make the choice of, would you like to color this, or would you like to do this math, or as the goal is to get something done, not necessarily a specific thing. You can give those choices out, and those choices sometimes cause children not to have that rebellion piece when they feel like they've made that choice. It's
that's
really
really
powerful.
helpful. Another thing that's good, I mentioned treats briefly. Let me just toss this in. Um, Brave Writers is a writing program for homeschooled kids, and Julie Bogart, who wrote it, said she includes sometimes with her writing sessions, she will encourage people to have tea time with their kid, and what that means is milk and cookies or tea and cookies, not as a reward for getting the writing assignment done, but it's okay, it's middle of the afternoon, we're going to write now. And as writers, we're going to have our little cup of highly diluted tea and our little cracker or whatever it is, just while we work. And I've had one parent in the families I interviewed for the book saying that just transformed how her kids felt about writing. It was like, oh, this is the fun time of day where we sit and think, and um, it made a difference for that family.
Exactly. There are, there's a couple of questions again about time and how much do I need to do in a day, and mandates from the Department of Ed on those time frames.
Hmm.
Um, One thing that I'll add, and then Kathy, I'll let you add to that. But one thing that I would say there would be, you know, at this moment, as Kathy has shared, we are all in a unique situation with a new time. And I think one of the most difficult things we can do to ourselves is to put those time restraints on ourselves, because you still, not only are you trying to get some information across to your children, but you're also still their mom, and you're also still providing information to, you're still being their parent. And so, um, giving yourself, as Kathy said, being patient with yourself and knowing that there is no mandate for how much you have to get done in a day.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's a lot of learning that happens in times that are not structured as well. So, but Kathy, I'll let you add to that.
Um, absolutely. I think we've got to most be concerned about our kids' emotional health and our relationships in this. In 20 years, when our kids are telling their families what they remember from the pandemic of 2020. It's not going to be if they finished 90% or only 75% of this part of their curriculum or their spelling words or something. It's going to be how their family times were together, how we were scared and but we enjoyed doing this, or we struggled with this, and um, we enjoy how we got through it. Just like my mom remembers how she got through World War II as a child. So we want to think holistically about our kids.
Exactly. There's a question here from someone who is a teacher, as well as a couple of people asking about school specific. And I'm trying to pull all of those together. It's a lot of the questions are around the mandates currently from the federal
Yes.
government and the state government about what has to be provided. Someone is asking, is there a mandate that the division provides computers or Chromebooks or iPads to people to be able to meet the IEPs and 504s? Is there a mandate about the resources being provided? Some schools are, some schools aren't. Um, I will say, and some of this is still on Pete's side. I can say that some of this is still being figured out.
Mm.
The mandate that has come out from the federal government right now is clear in that if a school system is offering new material to students without disabilities, that they also are required to be providing the FAPE and the IEP services that are on the child's current signed IEP. How that happens has not been clarified, and that's a really open situation right now that's still being worked out. Some school systems are, it's not mandated, but some school systems are providing technology. Some school systems are providing packets. Some school systems are having meetings. It really is dependent. Other than following that federal guideline, the school systems are really making some of those choices right now. I think more clarification is coming. But for those specific questions around those mandates and around the what's required and here's what I got and is this okay, and we're having an IEP meeting and is this okay, and I wasn't involved, or those kind of things, I would really encourage people to contact us one-on-one at Pete's and let us work with you, and let us provide you some very specific instructions and information as to what we're getting. If that, if that helps. I don't know, Kathy, if you had something to add there.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you to add something more. You mentioned TTACs earlier, and I'm not sure everybody on the call
Right.
understands what a great resource are. These are regional centers, government funded, that help us find appropriate technology to help our kids. And these centers, don't know how they're doing right now. They may be swamped too, but they do have some equipment to lend out to families so you can try something out and see if it's
Exactly.
useful
And
accommodation.
I would also say, be in touch with your child's school. The teachers and the special ed directors and the specialists are all still working. They're figuring out things as well. So get in touch with them and say, if you feel that you need, some kind of technology or some type of curriculum or some type of supports or some type of help, get in touch with them and be specific about what's happening there and ask questions. They may not know the answer right now, as we all are kind of every day brings something new and everybody doesn't know, what tomorrow's going to bring sometimes with the news. And I know some schools and some areas of the state are very limited in what they have, and some have, it seems like enormous amounts of opportunities for various technologies and things. So look at those things that might be out there. Ask questions. Again, contact resources. Contact the TTACs. When I say TTAC, it's TTAC. And again, you can email myself or Kathy, and we can help you connect to those things. Contact Pete's and say, hey, I'm hearing about this. You said this, or help me understand, and we can certainly walk you through that. There's been some people asking about resources when they don't have technology. You know, you don't want to send a kid straight to um, a website.
Yeah.
Again, contact your school, contact TTAC, which is the Training and Technical Assistance Centers in Virginia.
Mhm.
Contact PTC, contact, you know, all of these and say, help me. And we can give you information and share things with you that are out there right now. There's an abundance of information that's coming out every day on things you can do at home with your children, whether it's games you can play or a specific curriculum. So
I've got
I go ahead.
another resource with technology. Um, Joan Green was a public school speech pathologist who got interested in assistive technology originally to help children with aphasia and other challenges, but she has become one of the nation's experts on all kinds of assistive technology. If you go to her website, you can schedule a free 15-minute chat with her. It's innovativespeech.com. She's also got a bunch of free little 5-minute little videos on things like things you didn't know that your PC or your Mac could do to help your, and not just your child, maybe it's your grandma, um, help that help you navigate the accessibility features. So
Exactly.
innovativespeech.com is a great resource.
Right. There's some fabulous things out there. If you're like me, my inbox on a daily basis now is just filling up with here's a resource, here's this, here's that. Again, we're trying as quickly as we can at PTC to grab those that we think are appropriate for families of kids with disabilities and put them in a place that we are able to share those with you. So, you know, have reach out, have, you know, ask questions, but I encourage you to get on our Facebook page and just kind of scroll through some of the things that we posted in the last week. There's some awesome things on there, but that VCU TTAC list is ongoing, and it's pages and pages and pages. If you have access to it, you can even, you know, print off things to share with families that don't have access for that. I know that I know there might be a few questions that we did not get to answer. I have those, and I will follow up with you guys, or you can email us again at PTC. Our main email is partners, the word partner, PARTNERS at peatc.org. Or if you're having trouble remembering that, my last name is Burns, which is a little bit easier. Burns, like sunburns, at peatc.org, and I can filter it out to some of our great staff to get information to you. Kathy, we really appreciate you sharing this information tonight and putting your information out there for families. And thank you to all who signed on. I hope you guys are, again, I hope you are well and that you stay safe through all of this unusual time that we're in, and continue, you know, you're obviously doing a great job already just by spending some time tonight trying to figure out how can I do this better. So appreciate you and appreciate what you guys are already doing, and hang in there. And I'm hopeful that very soon we'll be back and doing some great things in person as well. But until then, we do have a ton of online things happening at PTC, and we hope that you'll be able to get involved with some of those as well. Thanks again so much, Kathy. Appreciate you giving your time to us tonight, and your knowledge, and hope everybody has a good evening.
It was my pleasure, and I'm happy to take questions too at learndifferently.com. Just click on the little chat bubble in the lower right and shoot me a question. We can set up a time to talk if you like. Thank you
Wonderful.
all.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay,
Tammy.
good night, everybody.
Good night.